Okay, I'd like to welcome to the process of hip hop all the way from the Bay Area, Adlnte from Adlnte Music. What's going on, man?
Hey man, thank you, thank you. I appreciate being on here. Appreciate you reaching out, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we like I said, we represent Cali. We did not plan this, but we got yeah, we got represent both sides, man. So definitely West Coast love up in here, man. But I wanted to start with, man. I had been able to look at your music, man, and your links and some of the stuff you worked with. But how did you first get started in? What was your first start into hip hop, man? Like, how'd you get interested in it? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I mean, this happened way back in the '90s when I first got introduced to hip hop, and it was through my older cousin, and we just had a family gathering. I think it was like a party or something, and he had just bought the it was Bone Thugs East 1999 tape, and he brought it over, and he was like we were hanging out, and he was like, yo, he's like, I just got this new tape from this group called Bone Thugs. He's like, let's listen to it. And I was like, all right, cool. And he popped it in, and that was that. That was like my first introduction to hip hop. And through that, I mean, they were working so closely with Eazy-E, and that just opened the door to like, everything else. Like, cause you heard, like, I was probably like maybe like 6 or 7 when he brought that. And you hear on the radio, you hear people like the songs playing, but for me to like sit there and fully like immerse myself into like an album, like that was my very first taste of hip hop. And that was something that just sparked it. And I was like, this like this culture, this language, these like the lyricists that are just telling their stories through all the music, the production. That I felt like that just resonated with me because my family being from another country and immigrating, it's a struggle story. And so a lot of those same like messages or pain or just that sort of feeling resonates till this day, in hip hop. Like, so
Yes,
I was it was something that resonated with me right away. And so that was like my very first introduction. And then I just started my journey diving deep into, the culture, into the lyricists, eventually moved into like listening to a lot of Mos Def and Kweli and Black Star, and listened to a lot of Immortal Technique. So yeah, so I think that's been the journey, right?
yeah,
Of when I first got introduced to hip hop, and how I would say like I fell in love with it.
yeah. We I always think it's interesting because those people that are in the industry, whether they're producers, artists, promoters, there's always an initial love for hip hop, usually with some iconic group or artist. I find that pretty common. For me, it was Run DMC,
Mm.
1985, King of Rock, and it was like that album, and that was my, kind of foray, I'll say, into hip hop. But everybody has like a moment, I think, that you described, and it's like I
Yeah,
said, it's interesting because it's usually an iconic group or an artist
yeah.
that basically gets people in hip hop. So it's always like either a Rakim, a
Hmm.
Nas, a
Hmm.
Biggie, Pac, in this case, a Bone Thugs, who, at one point in time they were definitely the hottest, one of the hottest rap groups, I'll say, especially during their era. But
Yeah.
you go from being a consumer, meaning that all you're doing is consuming the music, to
Hmm.
being an artist, a producer. So tell me about the transition that happened where you stopped just listening to music,
Yeah.
like probably 99% of people do, and you started saying, like, what was that like? Where you started to say, I think I want to do something with this.
Yeah.
What was that
Yeah.
point in time?
I definitely, yeah. So I think first off, like my family has a musical background. So we like I my mom growing up put me in like piano lessons for a few years. So I learned a little bit of piano and music theory. My brother plays guitar. So there was just music always in our home. There was always music in our house. And but then even then when I was taking piano, it just kind of felt more of like I hadn't found the love for it, like it just felt like something, like your mom was making me do, or like thing like that. And it wasn't till I got to about maybe like high school, so I was probably like 16, 17, where by that point, things had happened in my life. It was a difficult time, so I started just writing. Like I just started writing, and as I started writing those writings, I was like, I could put a little bit of like a rhyme to them, and then I was like, oh, okay, that was kind of dope. Like, like I'm not only expressing myself, but I'm doing it in an artistic way. And then I was like, okay, well, let me start looking for some beats, right? And then it just kind of started rolling like that. So I started as writing, and then on my own, I started like, just kind of trying to record myself. I had this like super old PC, and I had like, those little microphones that come with the
Yeah.
PCs that just connect to the back. So I had one of those, and I remember I was like, all right, let me just try this. So I didn't even buy it. I was like downloaded some free software, and I was like, it lets you put the beat on it and then kind of arm another track so you could record. And so I kind of just started playing around with it like that, like exploring with it. And then that kind of moved into, okay, well, I think I want to put together like my own little project. And so I think it was like 2005 when I started going on to, and at this point, like the online beat world was kind of starting to pop off through SoundClick.
Yeah.
And so I started, looking on SoundClick, getting beats, and then I just started like recording myself with like a little USB mic, and then just trying to learn how to make my voice sound better, like how to make it sound the way that it would sound on the radio. Like I didn't even know that was called like mixing engineers or audio engineering. Like I was just trying to be like, all right, like how can I make my voice or my song sound like what's on the radio? And that's when I really started doing that. And then that I did that. I put a project out. I was in college at this point, so I was kind of pushing that. And then that sort of turned into me diving into DJing. And so I started DJing. I started practicing DJing. I was like, all right, well, like, I'm gonna start. I have my records. I have my songs. I wanna, I can. I was in college, so I was starting to DJ all these parties. I was like, what better way? Like, I'm gonna start putting my records on at these parties and getting some buzz around them. So I started DJing, practicing with my cousin, who she's a DJ right now. She DJs for 94.9 here in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And so she was really the one who taught me, like, because she had been practicing for a lot longer and still practices more than I do DJing. And she was like, yeah, she's like, I'll teach you. So we sat down, we practiced, and we still go back and forth. And then so I did that for a while. Started putting out mixes, just of like more like radio stuff. And then I kind of stopped with that, and then I had always, like, the through line though was that I had always kind of messed around with making beats, because I just liked how I was able to express myself through music. But I just had never sat down to really learn how to do it, like, and so then by that point, I think it was like around 2000, I want to say 2014, 15, when I was like, all right, like I'm gonna sit down. Like I've dabbled in it here and there as far as like production. I know I can take somebody and record them and get their songs to sound, like mix and master them. And so now I was like, all right, I was like, well, I've always liked beat making. I've always liked production. Let me sit down and really dive into the art of it, right? Let me learn the ins and outs of it. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. Like now it's been about 5 years, that I've been really kind of going at it. And the first probably three were kind of on my own. I hadn't popped up on social media or anything. And then about 2018 was when I got introduced to Curtis King, you know,
Yeah.
and his online platform and his online kind of producer community. And so when I saw that, and at this point I was married, I have a kid, now I got three.
Yeah.
But I saw him and I was like, oh, I'm like, he's doing this online beat community, these online beat sales, right? He still has his family. He still puts his family first, you know, because there was always that kind of back and forth. Like,
Yes.
do you want to go into the industry? Because if you're gonna go into the industry, you got to be ready to be like, you know, that's your main focus,
Right.
right? Like people are cutthroat in there. Like you gotta go in there knowing what you're gonna go into. And so I never felt like that was really where I wanted to go. Um, and so when I saw this, I was like, oh, you know, he's treating it like his own business, his own self-employment business, right? And he still's got the flexibility to spend time with his family. He still has the flexibility to work the hours that he wants, you know. And so that's when I was like, okay, like I think this is the route that I want to take. And really like that's sort of what I've been kind of going for the past couple years. And just it just so happens that as I've done this, like it's actually opened doors with artists that I've now built connections with and work with on like a very regular basis. So yeah, so I know that was that was kind of a long-winded journey,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, and let me ask you. So, if you can recall, what was the? Because you said you were writing, so you're kind of like doing it for yourself, and you know you're making beats, you're kind of writing to it. But what was the first artist that were introduced to you as a producer?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're talking about producing, and I definitely want to get into what goes into producing, mixing, engineering. But tell me about that first artist, that first project where their their knowledge of you was that you were a producer, and
Yeah.
you had. Well, tell me about that. What was that like?
Yeah, so that was interesting. So I've had this friend. He's a dope photographer, cinematographer, here from the Bay Area as well, East Palo Alto. His name's David Chapman, and he had been talking to this rapper from Sacramento. His name's Rob Woods. And so this whole time, like, my boy Dave's been like, yo, like, I gotta put you in connection with my guy Rob. Like, he's this dope rapper. Like, you guys gotta link up together. And I was like, cool, yeah. Like, you know, like at that time, I think Rob was living in the Bay Area, but we just had never crossed paths. Um, and so Dave hit me up. This is probably like 2 years ago, I think now. And it was in February because he was like, hey, he's like, I want to put together this project specifically for Black History Month. And he's like, and I need some help with production and engineering. And I was like, cool. I'm like, you know, just let me know what you want me to do, and I'm there. He's like, cool. He's like, come to my house. You know, come to my house one night, and then we can start talking about it. It just so happened that that night when I went over, Rob was there. And so he introduced us. He was like, yo, like Rob, this is Adlnte. Like he's a beat maker, he's a producer. And so we just hung out. And as we were hanging out, he was like, all right, you know, like, yo, like play me something. And so I was like, cool. Like I whipped him out like a few beats and I started playing with them. And he was just like, yo, like, you know, like this is crazy. Like we gotta work together, you know? And I was like, for sure, you know, like. And so then that's how that relationship, that friendship started. So like it's been 2 years now, and we're still like going back and forth. Like he'll send me some tracks, I'll send him beats. Like, you know, even if it's not my production, like I'm still like involved and, you know, just checking in with him. Like it's moved past more of just like you're the artist, I'm the producer. Like now we're like more just constantly talking with each other, checking in with each other on like a even a non-music basis. But it all started that night when my friend Dave was putting together that project. And so yeah, now we're about, I mean, I don't know how many songs deep, and about two projects through with Rob in terms of like production and engineering. And yeah, like we're in that. So yeah, so that's
First
where
project.
that first kind of meeting, that introduction happened.
So not here's one of the things that I find is that not every producer has DJ experience,
Hmm.
and, and vice versa. You know, there are producers that are DJs, but for an artist or for just those that don't know, tell me about, man, what goes into from start to finish? What goes into producing, mixing, mastering, the whole engineering process, man. I mean, again, you don't, I mean, you don't got to
Yeah.
put every detail, but what goes into that? Because I think many artists who are aspiring or even aspiring producers don't always know. People that are just getting into it. So what goes into it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny because I feel like I've had conversations with people before who are like, what comes first? Like, does an artist hit you up with like lyrics and you play them beats and they pick a beat from that, or do you have the beat? Like I
Yeah,
guess the what comes first, the chicken or the
chicken or
egg
the egg,
type,
right?
And really it kind of all depends. Like, I can tell you from my experience, like I've had times where I'll get in the studio or I'll just be hanging out with the artist, and they'll be like, all right, like, play me some stuff. And I'll play them through a few beats and they may like one or they may not like any of them, right? Because it's not how they're feeling. And and so I've had it go both ways. I've had it where they do like them and they're like, yo, like I got it, like I love this one, and this one, boom. And so they take those beats and then they build the songs off of that, right? Because it's resonating with how they're feeling and kind of their ideas. And I've had other experiences where like I've had an artist with me in the studio and we'll literally sit down with like a blank canvas and just be like, all right, like how you feeling? Like, do you like this sound? How about this sound? Like, I can tell you from I'm working with this other artist. He's also from Redwood City. His name's Sergio Jr. And that was literally our process the last time we kicked it. The last time he came over here to my home studio, and we sat down and I played him a beat, right? And he was like, nah, he's like, I'm not feeling that. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, so then at that point we're like, he starts like describing what he's feeling. He starts describing like how like what sounds he hears on it. And so that's where my job is to like,
Yeah,
know where my stuff is so I can start pulling it out and being like, okay, how can I quickly capture what you're feeling right now and put it together so that we can start building off of it. And then in that instance, for that beat that we still haven't finished the song or the whole track is like it was just a bass line. And as soon as he heard that bass line, he was like, that's it. Like we got to build off of that. And
yeah,
so from that point, then it's just like, okay, you got that foundation and now you just kind of move up. All right, we start adding this. We start adding this sort of like rhythm, this sort of swing to it. And then once we had that done, then it was me and him writing the song. So not only am I producing the song in terms of the beat, but I'm also helping him come up with ideas as far as like songwriting. And so, because he's very collaborative, so he'll be writing and he'll be like, "How does this sound?" Like or like I'm trying to end this verse or this line. Like, what do you think we can use? And so in that point, like it's kind of a back and forth. Um, and then in terms with Rob specifically, like Rob lives in LA now. And so he's like we don't see each other very often in person. And so what I'll do in terms with him is that I'll send him like I'll be like, yo, like I'll send him like maybe like 5 different beats and they all kind of have a different style to them. Like one might have more of a boom bap, one might have more of a trap sound, one might have more of like a jazz type feel to it. Um, and I also know from working with him for so long, for the past couple of years, I've picked up on his kind of specific sounds, like stuff
yeah.
that he likes. So I'll throw him like 5 different beats, and I'll be like, kind of tell me where in here do you feel like you're at right now, and he'll be like, all right, this one for sure. And so then I'll take that one as almost like a blueprint and build like maybe like 4 more off of that one type of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like there's not really one clear cut way of going at it, but I will say that it becomes the most organic when you're able to have like a relationship or like a friendship with the artist. You know,
Yeah.
like I know that's not always possible, but I feel like at the beginning of when I was trying to, establish myself as a producer and having like, uh, some value to offer somebody else, like I would almost shoot myself in the foot by like jumping to, hey, like I got all these beats, like, buy them, buy them, buy them, like, jumping to like a really hard sell, because like you go into it and you're like, oh, I want to make sure that people know that I'm selling beats, and I wasn't really cultivating those relationships. I wasn't, so I think that's a very important step that any producer, right, beginner, experience, like, knows they should kind of build a foundation with a person, because they're people, they're human
Yeah.
beings, and they're expressing themselves, so they want somebody to be there to help them out, to like listen to them, to like, it would be completely different if Rob was like, or any other artist that hits me up is like, yo, I'm feeling this, and I send them something completely different. They'd be like, oh man, this guy's not even listening to me, and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I think that's super important.
Well, and it makes sense when you think, just like any other business or industry, if you work with somebody and you have success, chances are you're going to work with them again.
Yeah.
So, in hip hop history, the producer slash DJ, in traditional hip hop was the centerpiece. I
Mhm.
always think that that's interesting because you look at your titans, your Cool Herc, Afro
Mhm.
Bada, Grandmaster Flash, artists were coming to them in the
Yeah.
early stages of hip hop, and then it shifted a little bit towards more of the MC
Mhm.
taking the forefront. But yeah, but relationships in hip hop, man, you think of a Guru and Premier,
Yeah.
or Dre and Snoop, when people work together over and over and over again, Swiss Beats and DMX, it's because that relationship is so strong, as you
Yeah.
said, that they both understand what is expected from one another. And I think both, the producer understands the sound that's gonna work best for this
Mhm.
particular, because MCs, their voice, their delivery, their content, all of that is supposed to mesh with
Yeah.
the act beat. You
Yeah.
want it to, you almost, you want that. I always like your best hip hop tracks is when the MC's voice almost sounds just like another instrument.
Mhm.
It's kind of just like another instrument in the track. It's not
Yeah.
that's so those that's always your best ones. But so here's the other thing, man. How has production changed? I mean, obviously we have technology, but
Mhm.
how has production changed during COVID, man? Like how has your process changed now that you're really not,
Yeah.
I mean, people obviously they have to, but you're kind of limited now in
Mhm.
terms of everything you could do prior.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, even before COVID, like I had to implement, like, because if not, I get like myself, like I'll procrastinate, like I won't, like I'll just get lazy basically. And so for a while I had to like really, really build the habits to like, you know, get stuff done and almost make it become just a part of my day. Like, from this time to this time, like I'm producing no matter what. Like, I'm gonna be making a beat. I'm gonna be working on finishing, like, mixing and mastering some songs. Like, regardless of what it was, like I had to build this schedule for myself, because I noticed that there would be times where I was like, okay, like I'll make these beats on this day, and then there would be like a stretch where like I wouldn't, like I wouldn't do anything. And so now during COVID, like I feel like it's given me, actually, for me, and I know that this time has hit a lot of people hard. But at least in my space, I feel like it's actually given me a little bit more flexibility, in terms of, oh, my bad. Let me let me close the door real
You
quick.
all right? You all right?
you got people outside doing
Yeah,
their jobs.
yeah, sure.
um, but yeah, no, I think for me in terms of COVID, I think it's really it's given me a little bit more time to be able to produce. Like I feel like the volume of production and the volume of work that I've been able to pump out recently has actually increased. Like I knew going into this, like, all right, this is not the situation that I thought we'd all be in, right? This is a very difficult situation that's going on. However, I went into it with the mindset that I don't want to look back at this time and say that I wasted it.
Yeah,
You know, like
right.
I don't I like so the first thing that I did was I jumped in and I took a engineering class. Like it was one of those ones that like Sound Oracle, the guy who's the sound designer for Timbaland, he put together a course and he was selling it. And I saw it and I was like, this is my first step. Like I gotta take this, course, go through it, really hone in on my engineering skills in terms of beat production. Um, and then from there, I moved into okay, now I got to start setting my schedule in terms of how many beats I want to be uploading, right? Because again, like I had been uploading beats, but it wasn't as frequent as I'd like it, and so I implemented that. So now I know that every week I'm uploading 4 new beats throughout the week. When I get tracks from Rob or another artist, like okay, like I'm gonna dedicate this day to working on these. And so it really became like just a schedule, like, and this is aside from like, my family time. This is
Yeah,
aside from like even because I still have a day job, like a 9 to 5, right? Because again, I took that and I'm like, yes, this is my day job. This is taking up time, but I see it, and I've told other people like this. I see it personally as an angeled investor, right? Like I'm gonna get this, just paycheck, and I'm gonna take part of it. I'm gonna invest it back into my company, and then just kind of keep it moving like that. So I'm able to do my work with my job. I'm blessed enough to be able to work from home, and so I'm able to do that, and then at the same time switch gears once I'm done with that, and be like, all right, focus on music. Boom, 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 boom. And then the one thing that I've had to work on, and I feel like I've improved, but I know I still need space to improve on, is getting enough done during the day to where I can switch it off and then spend time with family. Because I know it's very easy to kind of get that uh, sort of mixed up, and then I'm like, oh dang, like I spent all day in the studio today and I wasn't able to, hang out with the kids or as much as I want. So that's one thing. Like I've been really trying to take advantage of the time that I have, and then be able to switch it off to where I could just, fully focus on, my son and my daughters, and then get back to it the next day.
hmm
Um, so yeah, so I think COVID has I think that was the main thing. The main thing for me was like, I don't want to waste this time.
look
Like,
back. Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting. I think during this whole time, artists, the hip hop industry, period, whatever role you play, you could either be extremely productive during this
Hmm.
time, or you could just make a bunch of excuses why, I can't get this done, can't get this done because of this. And I
Yeah.
do think like, man, if COVID would have happened 30 years ago when we didn't even have the technology that we have, I mean, it might have really shut down an industry when when producers and DJs used to have to physically give tapes to
Yeah.
artists or give tapes to the radio.
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't, I mean, you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, thank God for technology. But so are you kind of as far as new artists or established artists, man, do you accept, how do you best want people to get in contact with you that are interested in potentially working with you?
Yeah. I mean, they can contact me really like through any social media. Like I'm on there. as Adlnte Music. So it's Adlnte and then music. It has, like, if you were to go Facebook, Instagram, whatever, like it has the links to my email, it has the links to my phone number. You know, that's how you were able to
Yeah.
get in contact with me, you know, like so we were able to just start chatting right away. Um, and yeah, like I think for me, when I really try my best. I know sometimes like messages might go unread because Instagram kicks it to like another little like inbox and I
Yeah.
might miss it. But I really try to get back to as many people, actually all people who message me, because I know, um, you know, in one way or another, people are always looking for some sort of help from me, and I'm always trying to help them out, whether that be engineering, production, just any sort of thing. Like I think one thing that I've really kind of started working on more recently, aside from production, and again, like I feel like, you know, I keep mentioning Rob, but this is an artist probably that I'm working the closest with. Like is putting together like marketing strategies for artists, because that's something that I've noticed even with myself, that you know what tends to be right social media, and we say like, right, we can put a project out and everybody's it's accessible to everybody, but then on the flip side, there's like 40,000 new Spotify songs every single day, you know?
Yes.
So the volume of stuff, music being put out, like you really gotta like, go at it a certain way with a strategy, I feel like, in terms of getting it heard. Um, and so that's what people, when they were handing out tapes, that was their strategy. They knew
Yes.
like I need to go to this place, I need to get in contact with this person for them to even like consider it. So they were doing the physical footwork, right? Now it's like those same strategies apply, but you gotta just take them and put them in like a digital world, right? Like you still, like, we've been saying, you still gotta build those connections, you still gotta reach out to those people. And so yeah, so we did that with Rob's last project, the Black Tape, and which was a project that we completely did while we were in COVID. Like, like he recorded at his place, send stuff over to me. I'm mixing it, I'm producing, I'm doing all that stuff on my end. We're going back and forth like every day, all
Yeah.
day, like virtually, but we knew that it's possible, right? Like, and so he was like, again, like he hit me up and was like, yo, like I got a idea for this album, the Black Tape, and like let's get it done. And I was like, cool, let's go. And so towards the end of it, I was like, I mentioned to him, I was like, hey, I was like, I actually, because he started talking about like promo and getting, starting to get that stuff ready. I was like, hey, like I got this plan where it's like a 20-day plan where I think it would work, right? Like, and I think we could really capitalize on how dope your project is and start reaching out. And so we did, and it helped. It helped him out. It helped him gain exposure. Like he got featured on I believe it was like PBS hip hop. He got interviews with like a radio station here in the Bay, and so like people were able to catch on what
Yeah.
we knew was like an amazing piece of art, right?
Right.
And so like that's the thing. I think so many artists are putting out amazing work, right? That has meaning to it, that has like, they put their all into it. And nobody ever tells you like, hey, there's a whole nother side to this.
Yeah.
Like we're really good at being creative, but we're not always the best at being creative with marketing,
Yes.
right? Or
Right.
or that side of things. And so I think that's one thing that I've really tried to like kind of develop more, and I feel like I'm still on that journey. So there's a whole bunch of things, but I do kind of take it like you were saying, like I do kind of take it as like this, like I want people to be able to come or reach out to me, and then me say like, yeah, I can help you with that,
Mm-hmm.
like because I think that's my position. Like I know that I can guide them, or I know I can help them, right? I'm not gonna sit here and try and like